Good morning.
We've had good registration, sir. About 180 people had registered for this event.
Oh, very, very impressive. Very impressive.
And very senior people have joined.
Very impressive. I don't see surface.
We are now live on Facebook,
Okay.
YouTube, and all social media platforms.
Wonderful.
Morning, Shekhar.
Morning, Murli. Where are you?
Hi. How are you? How's the Delhi cold treating you?
Oh, yeah. Got it.
I must thank all the speakers for agreeing to join us. Vijay Kelkar, sir, Ambassador Sudhir Devre, sir, Admiral Shekhar, Ambassador Yogendra Kumar, Bhushan Gokhale, sir. Pulji, thank you so much for joining us and agreeing to participate in this event.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it now. No, but in the camera front, but I'm not getting in my, as I'm appearing on.
Yogi, you're already outstanding, not to worry.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm trying to, it's good to learn something. It's good to learn something new.
We'll sit over a glass of beer in IIC and we can try that out.
Yes, sure. The Gymkhana also is open now. The Gymkhana bar is also open.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Good to see you after a long time.
I know.
Remember our trip together somewhere? All we did.
Rajan sir, good morning.
Very fond memories.
Virtual background.
Veer sir, your old watchkeeper, Muralidharan. Rajan Veer sir.
Good morning to you. Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Good morning. Good morning, Arnav. Good morning, Gokhale, sir.
My preview. So if it is now the preview, what happens then?
We have another 2 minutes, sir. We'll start at 11 dot.
Okay. Okay, this is a preview. Why is it not showing here?
Good morning, Admiral Sinha, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good to see you, sir.
Rajan Veer sir, good morning. Murli, I hope you can see me.
Good morning, sir.
How are
Happy
you,
to see
sir?
you. Very well, sir. Thank you.
I did my watchkeeping with you all those years ago. On Deepak,
Yes,
on Deepak.
On Deepak, yes, that's right. I remember that. And of course, remember you as the head of the Coast Guard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's right.
We have some very senior people who have joined us. Thank you so much all for joining us. It's extremely encouraging for us to have you.
I see myself in the preview. In my preview, I see the background which you have suggested, but actually,
You'll have to. There is an apply button. There is an apply. You just apply, then you.
Actually, you go to the layout and adjust it there. Then only you will see yourself here. Otherwise, you will come in there.
We have 1 minute to go.
Below that, yes. Below that, sir, there is an apply button. If you just click, you are done, sir.
Yeah.
apply button.
Apply. Just below where you have these pictures, backgrounds, just click apply. You'll have to probably raise your screen a bit.
Okay, like this.
No, you'll have to hold on to that particular thing.
Huh?
When you click that change virtual background, when you click, there's an open window which opens, sir. You'll have to just put a little up.
I'm starting now.
Up. I would request Maestro Gokhale sir to kindly give his welcome address. Gokhale sir has been the Vice Chief of Air, but post-retirement, as he says, he's been more busy. As a Vice Chief of Air Force was not enough. Sir has been extremely involved in various activities in Pune and beyond. Various think tanks he's been part of, and most importantly, now he's the director of Center for Advanced Strategic Studies. But he's been also involved with the academia in Pune. Pune is definitely
Enough.
with a lot of institutions. Sir, thank you so much and for partnering us. And I would give it to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arnav. Good morning to everybody, and a very, very happy New Year, happy Lohri, and wish you a very healthy New Year. It's glad to have such senior people for this particular joint seminar that we are hosting, CAS and the MRC. We have with us Padma Vibhushan, Dr. Kelkar. We have, of course, nobody needs a further introduction of him. We also have Ambassador Devre, who's been in expert on the Southeast Asia, in particular at the moment in Singapore, also a chairman of that particular Southeast Asian studies. And he's been the director of ICWA. We have Ambassador Yogendra Kumar, who retired from Philippines as our ambassador and has written a number of books on maritime. As you know, this is gaining more and more importance. And as such, there are 4 volumes, 2 books of his own, and then edited volumes that he's contributed to. There is, of course, Shekhar Sinha, my old friend, an aviator like me, and he's been a FOCC of Westcom. And we have the anchor to all this is Praful Talera, who has been supporting the MRC to take that to greater heights. So these are the people on the panel, but there are many other senior people. There is Rajan Veer, whom we call as the Bhishma Pitama in Pune, because he's the one who started what is called the maritime, the activity in Pune in particular. And then, of course, my old friends, Mulidhar is there. There is Admiral Narkani's son, who also is an admiral who joined in, and many others. So I won't take time, but I will just get to my own opening remarks. As you know that we are talking about the missing kind of importance in the present context, and that is to do with underwater domain. Just the other day, as part of the 1971 Swarnim Vijay Varsh, as is called, I was reading the autobiography of Admiral Krishnan. Actually, he could not complete it, but his son in USA has completed that particular autobiography. But it's a wonderful book to read. And in that, Admiral Krishnan long back had talked about how important the submarines are. And especially, he says that our waters, the Indian Ocean waters, are something different, and that we need to pay more attention to whatever we are doing in terms of sonars, as well as in terms of detection, and then, of course, exploiting the underwater domain. As we talk about the underwater domain, is of course the Honorable Prime Minister talked about the Saga as the vision, and while many of us look at the surface, the ships, I think most of the blue economy is in the underwater, whether it is fishing, whether it is minerals, or whether it is anything else. And as such, I think the national security issue is, of course, which I'm sure Shekhar Sinha will throw more light on. It is also very connected with underwater. People say that next attack on Bombay not necessarily has to come by one of the sailboats, but it could come by an underwater. It could be even a robotic underwater kind of a vehicle. So there are issues that we all need to put our mind to and look at this particular underwater domain in a very serious way. I was also looking at what is going on in Antarctica. We were very good. In 1971 itself, we had sent, actually speaking, our first few people along with the Russian expedition to South Antarctica. So we started a kind of a good thing at that time. We established thereafter 3 stations. Now there are 2 of them operating. The third one is under construction. China started 1980. And now they have 5 stations. They have 25,000 square kilometer area. And they have got a permanent airfield there. The Indian Air Force landed 2 aircraft with the help of Argentine Air Force. We had put some skids and things like that, but that was just a one time. Now the Chinese have a regular airbase there and they're taking tourists there. One doesn't know actually what all goes on because Antarctica, as you know, at the moment, as per the treaty, is allowed only to do scientific exploration and maybe some of the various other experience experiments that are required. Nobody is supposed to do any exploitation of minerals, but then there is so much of krill and kind of fish which is huge potential in terms of proteins. There is also a lot of mineral which is around Antarctica. One doesn't know exactly what the intentions are. And while we look at pearl of string as the Chinese thread, there could be even something which is happening beyond us. And that is why many times I say that most of the countries have borders. They are defined on maps, but there is something called there's frontiers. And the distance between the borders and the frontiers is where the influence needs to go. And I think that is something that India had. India had a lot of influence, especially one sees in Southeast Asia, one sees in the Indian Ocean region. I think we need to once again revisit that. The MRC under Kamala Das has been trying level best to do this kind of education to everybody. We need to hold his hand and be in, I'm also the chairman of Maharashtra Indian Society. So in Garware, we are starting with an MOU signed with him. We are starting coaching classes. We were ready to take on some foreign students and we request the MEA to help us out. The other day, Dr. Vinayji Sahasrabudhe was there from ICCR and he did say that he will also help in some of the scholarships. So we are looking at trying to take this as both soft power and then there are issues which are connected with both the soft power and the hard power because the national security issues are also involved. So I think with these few words, I will now hand over back to Director MRC for taking on as an initial presentation for everybody to be aware of what maritime domain means. Over to you, Arnav.
Thank you so much, sir. Very good start to our event. And today we are discussing the maritime cooperation and how UDA can be an important part of that. I have a small presentation to make. I'll be talking about what this UDA framework that we are trying to progress and also how we can look at various dimensions as sir has brought out. Now, I have deliberately used this word digital ocean. I think the government of India has really taken up a huge amount of initiatives and Niti Aayog is driving multiple aspects for digital as part of the Digital India program. But I think there is a lot that needs to be looked at when we look at digital ocean. And I don't need to actually tell this audience, it's a very senior audience. But just for the young people, I would like to tell, I mean, there are two Indias that we look at. One is the terrestrial India and one is the maritime India. And I think the size of both are, I mean, when we look at the EZ, I think they almost match up. So there is huge amount of attention that is required when we talk about the underwater domain awareness. So just to quickly talk about geopolitical context, I'm trying to stress upon this. My senior naval colleagues are here and they understand operational challenges, particularly in the tropical littoral waters. And if we look at the 21st century new global order, the entire maritime activity is focused in the tropical waters. And when we talk about the tropical waters, I mean, probably the number one strategic construct is the Indo-Pacific. And if you look at the Indo-Pacific strategic space also, it is the entire tropical waters of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So this brings a very, very critical challenge. And particularly now, I've also written a paper on the Indo part of the Indo-Pacific. When we say, and India is being taken very, very seriously in the global power play. But we must not forget there are specific challenges of the Indo part of the Indo-Pacific, and we need to address them. And when we talk about the underwater domain awareness, these challenges are extremely unique, but they require indigenous effort. I mean, typically a lot of technology import and a lot of imports have happened in terms of know-how also. But unless we try to address them ourselves, we probably will fall short. So specifically coming to the Indian Ocean region, our position is extremely unique. I think that is well known. So there are most of the states here are pre-modern states, so they definitely look up to India. Now, specifically talking about the environment, I mean, the Kuznets curve that you can see here is very well accepted. But today, when we talk about the Indian Ocean region, probably we are on the first dotted line. The Kuznets curve on the x-axis has GDP and growth, and on the y-axis has the level of environmental degradation. When we are on the first dotted line, to taper this curve, I think a lot of understanding of the environmental issues or the environmental concerns need to be addressed. And that requires tremendous understanding. And one of the important issues here is the acoustic habitat degradation. When we are pushing so much of development, the Sagar vision is there, the Sagar Mala project is there, and many more deep sea mining is being taken up very seriously. But we must not lose sight of the sustainability aspects. And if we can, I mean, the whole framework that we are proposing, it tries to bring down these binaries. I mean, typically we fall into these binaries of development versus environment, or security versus environment, or security versus development. And we find that even the ministries in the government are actually competing with each other. So how do we kind of break down these binaries is the thing. And one important issue is the post-Cold War era realities. Typically, the underwater technology development happened during the Cold War period. Requirement at that time was the temperate waters and the polar waters, typically the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap. But the underwater conditions there are totally different, and the same technology does not work here. And that is something we all must. And it is not just the defense. I'm all just not just the Navy. Underwater technology is required for all the stakeholders. So these technology challenges that we face need to be recognized when we look at a broader national or a regional policy framework. Now, India in the 21st century, Sagar vision I've talked about. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But the other aspect, nuclear power with no first use, is something I would like to talk about. Now, very unique thing I want to bring to this audience. When we had the first Chakra, INS Chakra, that was deployed in the East Coast, and it sat down in position, the entire sonar screen got black. There was a little brainstorming done, and somebody said that we'll do a blast transmission and it will be fine. The captain definitely had a much deeper understanding of the thing, and in spite of this being suicidal, he said that okay, that if that is the only option, we have to do that. And sure enough, when they did a blast transmission, the sonar screen got was fine. The point here was that it was sitting on top of a snapping shrimp bed. Now, I will take you back to 1946, when the Americans were supposed to deploy the first nuclear submarine in 1952, when Nautilus was supposed to be deployed. Scrip Institute did a global mapping of snapping shrimps. Snapping shrimp is a small creature that generates sound of the order of 200 dB reference 1 micropascal, whereas a blue whale, the largest mammal on Earth, produces 196. Blue whales are in few numbers, in single digits. Snapping shrimps are in millions. So it overwhelms, and the frequency band is 3 kilohertz to 15 kilohertz. That is the exact frequency where submarine sonars work. Now, it is important for us. I mean, with this, I wrote about this 7 years back. I got some good phone calls, but I think as a nation, we did not take it forward. Probably we did not take it seriously. We, on our own in MRC, we started working on this, and we mapped the entire habitat based on the habitat condition. And a lot of it was not, to be honest, not original work. I just learned from what the Americans did in 1946. But I did it for the Indian Ocean region in our waters. And this is the figure we came out with. What is the habitat and what is the soundscape that will be generated? And this is a real-time map. I mean, every 10 minutes, we can give you an update. What is the situation, how the sound is. Having worked on this, recently I met Pratap Rao Pawar sir, and we had a very long chat. And he heard me, and then he said, Arnab, what are you doing for the livelihood of coastal communities? And when I discussed this, he said, why don't you look at this? So this is also very important when we have such a tool. These are all AI-based tools that we have developed. This is also very relevant for aquaculture. We can monitor the underwater condition, and the same work is relevant for so many other applications. So this is what we are actually. So he told me that you are doing all this, but you have to look at it from all dimensions. And that is how it is. So when we look at, this is the whole thing of digital oceans, and there are so many things that can be done. I mean, the same work can be looked at from different dimensions, and it will have relevance all across. So now in India, there is a tremendous push in terms of maritime capacity building, but somehow the underwater component is getting lost and there's not enough attention. So that's where we are trying to take it forward. And one important aspect in the underwater situation is that regulatory framework is fine, but the monitoring mechanism becomes a much bigger challenge. So there is definitely requirement for more people to come in and more people to get involved. Now, how bad is it here? The first picture is of a 40 feet blue whale stranding south of Mumbai in May 2015. The second is 50 feet bride whale of Karwar in 2016. And the third one is 90 pilotless whales getting stranded off the coast of Tuticorin. So, and there was an RTI in 2000 last year, and Hindustan Times covered this in their full page article. In Maharashtra coast alone, that 720 kilometers of coastline, in 1 year, there were 80 big whale strandings reported in 1 year, that is 2016. So this is a serious, I mean, environmental degradation is a very, very serious issue. And I have analyzed this first two stranding incidents, and I've attributed it to the anti-piracy operation that has been going on since 2009. Entire shipping lane has been shifted, and many of these species are not supposed to be seen north of Sri Lanka. Their entire migration patterns have got changed, and it is causing a lot of acoustic habitat degradation. I mean, we all know sound is the only signal that propagates underwater. So their habitat is acoustic based, and because of human activities, their habitat is getting degraded, and I call it acoustic habitat degradation. My book is on this topic. I've tried to analyze the technical aspect of it, and also how, from an Indian maritime strategic perspective, we can address this. Now, maritime domain awareness has become a very, very important, I mean, if I can use the word buzzword. Post the 9/11 in the US and global community recognized the importance of maritime domain awareness. In India, post the 26/11, this became a very important thing. Navy invested significantly. They have come up with the IMAX facility in Gurgaon. But the problem here is that it remained a security-driven formulation. It comes with a whole lot of restrictions and limitations. All security-driven aspects have its own type of limitation. The bigger aspect was that MDA remained a surface formulation. Even in the US, there's a paper by Commander Borez, Maritime Domain Awareness, Myth versus Reality. And he has written how the underwater component does not get covered. And with growing disruptive technologies available, I think addressing the underwater component is very, very important. I have written in one of my papers, there are groups like certain terrorist groups like from Iran and even LTT at some point. Now it is no more there, but many terrorist groups have underwater capability. So we need to be aware and we need to be careful about all these things. And a lot of effort is required to understand, and that's what is underwater domain awareness. Now, coming to the UDA, there are 4 critical stakeholders that we talk about. Now, in terms of maritime security, there is a danger of submarines from our adversaries in our waters. How do we have effective detection of these submarines well in time so that we can prepare ourselves? Second is we have our own strategic submarine. I talked about one incident earlier. How do we deploy our submarines effectively? That is something very, very important. There is so much more to be done. Third is this Kasab incident that we are reminded of. As Bhushan sir also mentioned, I think the next time it is not going to be a surface craft. So what is our preparedness? And the fourth one is the large-scale migration that is going to happen because of the climate change and the temperature rising. Lot of places are going to get inundated. So what is our plan to counter large-scale migration? It's something. So how do we? I mean, it's an entire process. How do we monitor? And because you need time to prepare. So there has to be a proper mechanism, technology or science and technology-based mechanism where we can really predict how this phenomena will unfold. Looking at the blue economy, the Indian Ocean is certainly the hub for energy security, but there are issues that need to be looked at. Second picture is something I would like to spend time on. We are increasingly looking at the sea for food security. And there is vast resources that are available which need to be tapped for our food security. But the problem is that since 1996, credible research says that fish stock is on the decline because large part of fishing globally is in the unorganized sector. Firstly, we don't have proper data, and the second is that we have no control over it. So this needs to be looked at. So how do we manage fishing? On one side, there is decline in the fish stock from 1996. On the other end, the bycatch due to in fishing, the large mechanized trawlers is almost 80%. On one end, we are our stocks are going down. On the other end, the wastage is of the order of 80%. So how do we manage this? We need to put in a lot of technology. Fish finding sonars are there. How do we regulate this and manage this more effectively? Is something we need to really urgently look at. Then we have these strategic assets, their own security, their own impact on the environment. There are a whole lot of aspects that need to be looked at. And deep sea mining, I think it is well known. I will not get into the details. We have a International Seabed Authority has allocated uh, us certain blocks in the southern Indian Ocean region, but I think we have not yet reached a level where we can really exploit it effectively. China has been allocated something very close to us, but they're already far ahead of us. So as a nation, I think we need, our scientific communities are doing a lot. It would be wrong for me to even say anything on that side. But as a nation, I think there is a lot of capacity building required to address all underwater aspects. Disaster management, I think it is well known. I don't need to spend. And as I talked about this acoustic habitat degradation, that is something we need to really put in a lot of effort and understand firstly, and how regulations and the monitoring mechanism can be put in place. Now, science and technology will remain the driver for all new initiatives or all big things, but our own understanding of the ecosystem is very, very important. And I think in the Indian Ocean region, our understanding of various components of the ecosystem, how they interact with each other, is very, very minimal. So there's a lot of effort required. Second picture that you see is, if we have 20 lakh square kilometer of EZ, can't have sensors all across. So how do we build smart systems? And that is what the digital ocean is all about. And how do we take it forward? Typically, the problem here has been that if it is defense, DRDO, if it is non-defense, CSIR, there are labs who have done a lot of work. But when you look at what is required, it is such a huge infrastructure that is required. I think the fragmented approach will not help us. We all need to come together. This is the proposal that we have as the UDA framework. If you look at this cube, different faces of the cube represent the different stakeholders. But the core will be, I mean, that is a horizontal construct. All of them may have their specific requirement, but the core is the acoustic capacity. I mean, when we imported sonar, when we tested sonars in Russia, we got 32 nautical miles at the range. When the same ship sails and comes to India, the range reduces to 5 to 6 nautical miles. That is the level of degradation that we face in the tropical waters. So whether it is for a naval application or for a blue economic application or for any other environmental monitoring, unless we get our sonars going, it will not help. So that is what the acoustic capacity building. It's not about getting the best sonar, but how do we understand because these are very cyclic behavior. How do we kind of take advantage of that? So that is the whole aspect of acoustic habitat degradation. And when we look at the vertical construct, there's a lot of sensing required. I mean, typically it is top down. We try and get some regulations from the West. We try to push it here. It doesn't work, and the whole thing becomes very ad hoc. The best way is probably to have a lot of sensing, do application specific analysis, and then look at regulation. So the bottom up approach is required, but then this requires a lot of people to get involved. And in terms of, I mean, the young India or the demographic advantage, this can address that also comprehensively, because if you look at these smaller cubes, multidisciplinary students can participate. If it's a science and technology students, they can work on a certain aspect of this cube. If there are law students, they can work. If there are social engineering students, they can come in at a certain point. So all of them can work, and it connects them very clearly to the stakeholder. So for their carrier option also, this kind of addresses. Now, another aspect is that today, if you look at the government of India or many such countries, developing countries, there are many organizations with specific mandate, but they are doing a lot of overlapping work. In this weekend, when the government allocates funds, they can actually use this cube in a way that it is very clearly defined that these are the areas which require you to, for the scientific community to get involved, and there will be priority given to that. So this kind of makes it much more clearer or from a policy perspective as well. These are some of the offshoots of the larger UDA framework, like underwater radiated noise management. Now, Navy requires it for acoustic stealth. Acoustic habitat degradation is an important area. DG Shipping has shown interest, and Minister of Shipping has now taken our policy framework for presentation to the next IMO conference in terms of noise underwater. Because now the global community is also getting very serious in terms of noise in the ocean. And European Union has already come up with some, and that is getting implemented in a year or so. So we need to gear up, and then ship designers and shipyards also need to come in. So different stakeholders can come together and address this, and but the same acoustic capacity building remains relevant. Similarly, sediment classification is another such. So we have multiple such smaller kind of offshoot of the larger UDA framework. Like sediment classification is very important for our dams are silted. How do you do desiltation effort? Inland water transport is such a massive program launched by the government of India. How to keep our rivers navigable? A whole lot of aspects are there, and the same kind of UDA framework that we are talking about is relevant to this. Now, in terms of the UDA framework and the opportunity, a user academia industry partnership is, I think, inescapable. Academia has to step in, build courses. Now, I'm from Assam, and I have been interacting with the inland water transport. National Waterway number 2 is coming up there. They are now kind of aggressively taking forward the project. They have no local talent available for them. And there's a huge requirement of people coming down and kind of taking this project forward. Now, the problem is that no academia has stepped up to provide skilled manpower. There's a lot of skill development programs that are required, but acoustic survey itself is such a massive thing which is required by all the stakeholders. There is not a institute in this country which has this as an academic program. So academia has to step in. Industry also needs to kind of communicate, and then users have to kind of take forward. And it is very much aligned with the various programs of the government of India, whether it is Make in India, Skill India, Startup India, Digital India. There are so many opportunities for the startup take up. I mean, AI, the way it has taken off on land, I think there is absolutely unlimited opportunities below the surface. And there are certain specific key competence that will be required, whether it is underwater robotics or signal processing, modeling and simulation, data science. And at the output of the tunnel, we are going to get effective policy, uh, 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 useful technology and innovation, and human resource development. And the applications are, I think, unlimited. We all understand. Even a simple thing like underwater search and rescue. Conventional thinking just doesn't work in our waters. And this has to be. We have done a very detailed paper on this, how this is to be. We've lost a AN32. We never found it. But my stress is more on the process, how we approach underwater search and rescue. This is one of the projects we did, and this has got so many applications. We just took the AIS data, automatic identification data, which gives you complete details of the shipping traffic, type of the ship, and also the what speed and what course it is making. Using that data, using AI techniques and underwater signal processing techniques, we have converted that to low frequency noise. This map can be used for submarine deployment. This map can be used for managing big whale strandings, for conservation efforts, and a whole lot of applications can be managed. And this is a real-time map which gets updated every 5 minutes. I mean, that's the limitation of the AIS output. So we have a real-time map which can be easily used for policy and for the on-ground monitoring. And similar thing can be used for even monitoring the underwater parameters for even aquaculture and various applications. So we have a three-dimensional, the same thing has been developed for a three-dimensional, even at various depths. We have the data. So this is a larger digital ocean plan. I mean, you can see various months it changes, and so we have developed these maps. We have also done field work in Khadakwasta Lake. We did a 5-day workshop where we, for the entire lake, we have done underwater data collection, and that was for a sediment classification because the dams are silted. There's a whole lot of things that can be. One of my PhD students got her degree for that. But we, thanks to National Defense Academy, they gave us the boat support. We hired 5 different underwater sensors, 5 sonars and other sensors, and did data collection in various times of the day. And we chose that particular time where the maximum fluctuations are there. And these are some of the pictures of that. We also did ground validation using coring. And so in terms of this application of UDA, whether it is water resource management, inland water transport, underwater archaeology is something we have been working very seriously. As sir mentioned, Vinayji was very kind to come down to Pune and meet us, and it was a 3-hour long program. A lot of senior people from Pune had joined us, so it was very encouraging for us. And so a whole lot of aspects are there. 4 PhD students have already finished their work with us. Now some more are joining us. I worked on various aspects of the underwater domain awareness, including a serving captain in the Indian Navy, who has done some very good work on underwater sensors. I mean, idea is also to penetrate into various stakeholders so that message can go to everybody. My first scholar wrote a book on underwater archaeology in India, The Lost Enigma. She is a history student who also did her master's in archaeology. And the New Learning Technologies won a global innovation challenge on the environment solution we gave. Last year, we were in France to make presentations. We were the only team from Asia for having got selected for this. And there is a lot of interest in the European Union to look at such work. We do multiple programs. UDA Summer School is one of them. It's a 6-week project-based internship. It's a national program. We've been doing it for the last 4 years. We've had students from all over the country come and stay with us. We've had even officers from Coast Guard, scientists from DRDO, and shipyard officers who have come. So it's a peer learning format where they come and spend 4 weeks either in Mumbai or Pune and 2 weeks in Goa. And we now want to take it to the region and want to have students from all across the region. And we have now got reasonable support. I think this year we should be able to, if the pandemic permits, we should be. So, and people who come and interact with them are very, very senior people. I'm sure all of you will recognize. I'll not spend much time on this. Even we've had professors from Taiwan coming and talking about geopolitics. We got a lot of support. The Honorable Chief Minister of Goa has been extremely kind. Earlier, Manohar Parrikar sir allowed validity to happen in his office, and now Pramod Sawant sir also has always joined this program. Admiral Arun Prakash and a whole lot of senior people have been very, very kind, and they've spent a lot of time with the participants. Quickly, my last 2 slides. In terms of maritime cooperation, I would propose 3 steps: outreach, engage, and sustain. In terms of outreach, I think workshops, seminars, academic and corporate exchanges, and short courses. We have multiple modules that we have developed, and we would like to work on this. And bilateral and multilateral interactions with countries in the region, whether it is part of the IORA or the BIMSTEC, and beyond. We can work on this shorter programs where we first sensitize them on the relevance and the importance. Second is to engage, where we look at UDA fellowships, 6 months or 1 year or 1.5 years, where we do something more substantial. And it is not just for students, but even professionals can come and join. Academic degree programs with institutes, their joint projects under bilateral and multilateral MOUs, because any formulation has to be a regional approach. Nothing can happen on a national level. So unless we all come together, and I think this will also help prevent extra-regional powers coming into our area. I mean, we've had experiences with Sri Lanka, Maldives, and various other countries. So I think India needs to step up. Otherwise, we probably need to put boots on the ground so that we are able to kind of monitor what others are doing. And unless we are able to give them capacity building and capability building support to those countries, one is within, and then these countries, we need to take it up in a very, very structured manner. And sustain is then we can look at more nuanced regional policy framework. And I would also like to propose a center of excellence where we look at all the components of it, whether it is training, whether it is research, whether it is strategy, whether it is academic program, or it is an incubation center, everything together, 5 multiple sub-centers should come into a center of excellence so that we can drive this in a more comprehensive manner where multidisciplinary students can come in and take this forward. And it should, I think, UDA should become a agenda point for the various forums that we have. And way ahead, I think, a national capacity and capability building program, we have made a presentation to Niti Aayog, and they have been extremely positive. I think Ambassador Yogendra Kumar would also like to speak about it at the end. And I think we need to push for user academy industry partnership, as Gokhale sir also mentioned. We are definitely now there is an interest, but I think this has to be scaled up at a very, very different level. And stakeholder consolidation. I mean, a fragmented approach has to go. So I think I'll stop here. Thank you so much. I'll now request Admiral Shekhar Sinha sir to kindly talk about the security aspects.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Best wishes of Bihu to Dr. Arnab, and very happy Lori, Pongal, and all other festivals which are being celebrated today. Thank you, Dr. Arnab, for inviting me here to give my views on the underwater domain awareness, a subject which has been intriguing for a very, very long time. And now it has become a subject of underwater sound propagation study. It is an exploratory science, if I put it in very short term. Not very much is known, and there is so much to know looking at the size of the ocean. My thanks also to CAS. It's really great to reconnect to Air Marshal Bingo Gokhale sir, Ambassador Sudhir, Dr. Vijay Kelkar, and my very dear friends, Ambassador Yogendra, Admiral Muralidharan, and Admiral Nadkarni, who I had the fortune of serving with at the headquarters Western Naval Command. I've been asked to speak on UDA, dimension of the maritime security in the Indian Ocean region. Lately, the attention of the world has shifted towards the ocean, or maybe that India has been a late comer in this. If one takes a look at the map, we don't have, you will realize that we do not have any true friends in our land neighborhood. Our trade over land is so minuscule, and yet we have had this continental strategy or continent-centric strategy for over 60 years. In fact, it is only from 2014 when the present government under the Prime Minister Modi took over the helm of India that the attention has shifted to seas and Indian Ocean in particular. And also, Dr. Arnab also mentioned about the Sagar, and he mentioned about how it is being given a fair amount of push at the moment. Now, oceans, not only because of trade and blue economy, have become more important, but it has also been accentuated by the major geopolitical changes in the world. Arrival of China and Trump administration's valiant effort to prevent China from ascending both to the world leadership in both economy and military has been one of the key drivers. The sudden change towards the Indo-Pacific strategy. Yesterday, the National Security Council of the US has declassified the data on the Indo-Pacific strategy, and it is worth reading as to what has been driving the United States for collaboration with India and taking it to very higher levels, to restrict China's rise. Well, China has risen, and it's not going to, there's no point saying that China is a rising power. It has risen, no matter how painful it has been for the world, not a peaceful rise at all. Economic activity-led prosperity has shied away from India, in our development story, with 90% both by volume and sort of value, our trade moving on the seas. We have woken up after a very, very long time. And in a particular year, about almost $20 trillion of trade is going through these oceans, and most of it through the Indian Ocean. Blue economy and exploration of seabed resources are two issues which have become major points of discussion to make the utilization of seas more, shall I say, sustainable. However, assertive and painful rise of China, as I said, has demonstrated its the appetite for destroying the ecology. So when technology is in the hands of the autocratic regime, more often than not, it is utilized for all wrong reasons, and not so much for the reasons in human development is included. The marine ecosystem has been fairly destroyed in the South China Sea because of reclamation of small islands and reefs and shoals. It's an example as to what is in store. We find the Chinese ocean research vessels and underwater drones very often in the Indian Ocean region, which are not only looking for resources, but they are also mapping the underwater hydrology and acoustics. So there are two aspects of what Arno has been saying. That one is in hydrological aspects, which gives rise to, or which helps you in making the underwater, shall I say, the weapons and sensors, so that you can have a very good sonar system, you can have a very good torpedo, you can have a very good everything. And the second one is the mapping. So these are two aspects, but ultimately they help you in both exploiting the resources in a sustainable manner, and also for wrong reasons, for making sort of submarines be more effective, for torpedoes being more effective, and their deployments, as Arno mentioned in the beginning. Recently, there was a news that the Chinese have launched more than 1,000 underwater gliders, and a lot of it in the Indian Ocean. And they have all been recovered after having mapped both the hydrology and possibly the seabed, so that this can be used for their future deployment of their submarines. It was just one practical example. The first nuclear submarine of China sort of ventured into the Indian Ocean in 2013 towards the end, when we were getting the Vikramaditya in its maiden passage from Murmansk to Karwar. And this was preceded by the research vessels, initially operating in the Bay of Bengal and thereafter moving towards the Maldives. And we had initially a bit difficult time. Well, it was not declassified at that time, but I don't mind saying because it's already 8-9 years. What happened that initially we sent the TUs to see where this ship was, and the ship was anchored and often would weigh anchor and proceed between Maldives and the Babile Mandap. And we made the TU fly very close to the ship, and we took the pictures of the entire radar which was fitted in that, and we came back and we gave it to the IIT Mumbai to find out as to what the radars were, and it was in fact, which looked like the radar was an antenna for connecting up the satellite which was positioned in those areas for the messages to be cleared by the ocean research vessel up to Beijing. Why and what messages? And this nuclear submarine was the answer, which would often come to a depth from where it could communicate with the ship, and the data would be passed. So this submarine was deployed to basically to monitor the arrival of Vikramaditya, possibly take down the acoustic data of all its 4 propellers, and use it in future for devising the correct kind of anti-ship torpedo or any other system. Well, I mean, they didn't succeed mainly because we managed to understand the ship's antennas, and we had the Western Fleet accompanying the Vikramaditya, and we managed to mask the acoustic sort of noise that it was making by its, switching off the 2 propellers and getting the ships change their positions. But then we realized at that time that how much did we lack the underwater domain awareness, and how little we had factored in our overall calculus of the maritime domain awareness. So this I'm only strengthening what Arnab had said, and I, and I think that it's MRC is doing a very Herculean sort of task, and I hope that they succeed. India's trade traverses over IOR, and so does operation of the naval competence. As you know, that we have the naval planners have always planned that the security of our sea lanes of communication in the Indian Ocean region will be prime task of the Indian Navy. And all our predecessors have worked to make the Navy capable of doing that. And it is for that reason that even today, and I say this with great confidence, that we are in a position to say that we have, after the US, we have the complete combat leadership in the Indian Ocean region. It will take some time for China to be here, but unless we do these studies and unless we make use of these studies, I'm afraid that the China-Pakistan nexus is likely to become very, very risky and dangerous for us. Underwater domain awareness has gained traction as much as MDA over surface of sea and air. Maritime piracy, development of the UUVs, they pose a serious challenge to the manner in which we practice our security. Well, I shall limit myself only to maritime security aspect and not into blue economy, because there are enough very qualified people who are to speak later. Excuse me. Do we have any sort of kind of UDA? The answer is both yes and no. Yes, because yes, a lot of work is going on. And when I read the declassified paper of the US on the Indo-Pacific yesterday, I find that the underwater research and strengthening maritime domain awareness partnership with India by parting with technology and sharing technology and intelligence is one of the very important parts under which the work on the underwater domain awareness technology is being done right now, not only with US, but 3 countries with whom, the other 2 countries with whom we have this 2+2 agreements, like Japan and Australia. And fair amount of work has sort of been done, and some of it is, in the trial stage. But I think I suffice it to say only that much, but it will take some time. Underwater study is not very easy. It has multiple variables. You have density of water, the salinity of water. Commander Das mentioned about the reduction in the sonar ranges, mainly because of salinity. Then you have the pressure, you have the temperature, and you have marine life, you have ecosystem. You have the Coriolis force, you have the tidal waves. They all have impact on the propagation of sound underwater, and therefore it is not going to be a very easy study, and it will take a fairly long time. US has been having this underwater sort of probes for a long time, and China captured one of them a few years ago. Captured one of the probes, and thereafter it has developed good sort of ability to make its own, they call it underwater glider. And as I said, over 1,000 of them were launched very recently in the Indo-Pacific region. We also would recall that some of these data were also used to put the sources, the sound operated surveillance system, which again Dr. Arnab mentioned about in the UK, Iceland, Greenland gap, to monitor the movement of the nuclear submarines of the erstwhile USSR. So what happens is the physical properties of the underwater environment, they impact the sonars, both dipping sonars and the hull mounted sonar, and therefore the ranges of these, the pickup ranges do get affected. In a recent statement, our Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral KB Singh, mentioned that the Indian Navy was focusing hard on getting more awareness of warfighting within the underwater space. So this one line is very significant. He couldn't have said more than this because of the nature of development which is taking place and the trials which are some in progress and some will be progressed. India does have geographical advantage in that no vessel can enter or exit from IOR following the busy sea lanes of communication without having to negotiate the choke points. And therefore, the study of underwater domain in these choke points, in the coastal areas, and international maritime boundary line can put us little bit in stronger position. So while mapping the entire Indian Ocean is a tall order, but if we limit ourselves, if we begin from the choke points and our own coastal areas, then we would have made fair amount of progress in determining the type of equipment or type of sonars we need to develop, or the type of torpedoes or underwater weapons that we need to develop. So that will limit our scope, and the naval sort of scientific community and the DRDO can also participate in a big way. So I will suggest to MRC that maybe they can look at this and quote this statement of Chief of Naval Staff and get on with this, the organizations which are doing this, particularly the DRDO, but there are some other organizations. As you know, some IITs have been given a task to do the underwater sound propagation study and come back to. So I think that the security is really very key to Indian Navy's keenness to develop the capability of underwater warfare science. And for that, the sound propagation underwater, the scientific community has to come up. As I said, I have just segregated these rather than doing in entire ocean, to make it limited to 3-4 choke points that we have, so that we have a fair idea of making a surveillance system for those areas. Secondly, in our coastal areas which are vulnerable, as Marshal Gokhale rightly said, that the next one will not be over the surface of water. So we have these vulnerable areas where these underwater the sound surveillance systems can be positioned depending upon the hydrology or depending upon the mapping that we do from this type of research work. The comprehensive strategic sort of partnership with US and the other two countries have very clearly mentioned under the very sort of guarded nomenclature of science and technology, and most of it, the study is actually being done on the underwater sound and the jet engine technology. So I will just stop here and take on any questions if there are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, sir, we are definitely engaging with the Navy. In 2019, the Chief of the Naval Staff gave us 1 hour to discuss some of these, and Vice Chief, Deputy Chief, and DGNO was also there. Definitely, Navy is working on multiple dimensions, and on some smaller areas, we are also. It was also discussed in the Commanders Conference in 2018, and we are working with IIT Delhi also on some projects on this. Thank you so much, sir. I'll request Ambassador Sudhir Devre, sir, to kindly give the diplomatic dimension. And sir has tremendous experience in maritime cooperation, so request you to kindly. Kindly unmute yourself.
Muted.
Ambassador Devre sir, please unmute yourself. Sir, it is in the middle of your screen at the bottom. Yes.
Is it now okay? Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm very thankful to Air Marshal Bhushan Gokhale and Commander Arnav Das for this invitation to me to speak at this webinar on a very high, complex and a specialized and yet an important subject, namely maritime cooperation and underwater domain awareness. What is the sound?
I think you got two systems on, because we can see your name in two places. Switch off one of the systems.
So how can I delete one of them?
Switch off your mobile or whatever it is, and switch on in this one.
No, there is no more.
Okay.
We can see you in two places.
No. Here. Well, I'm not an expert on this topic, but I would.
Sir, please try to lower your volume on the computer or something.
Can I remove it? No, nothing. No, only computer is working. That's all.
So please try to reduce the volume on the computer of the speaker.
Kindly reduce the volume of your speaker, sir. That should help.
Sorry.
Kindly reduce the volume of your speaker.
Yes. I think it's much better
Yes, sir.
now.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I would try to give a broad perspective, mainly from the angle of regional cooperation and also highlighting the economic aspects of such cooperation in the context of the underwater domain. Well, as a maritime nation, India has been always conscious of the need for security and transportation requirements on the ocean surface, just as it recognizes the importance of exploration and utilization of living and non-living resources underwater. And it is for this reason we can see that in the recent years, India's fisheries, both coastal or in the deep seas, are being harnessed with much larger quantities than before. Search for polymetallic or manganese nodules from the seabed in the Indian Ocean has been going on for a long time. An extraction of natural gas and oil in the Bombay High or the KG Basin has also been undertaken since decades, though the outputs have not been as satisfactory as we would have expected. India's active negotiations in the Law of the Sea Conference or its campaigns to the Antarctica way back from the 70s were also driven by its desire to explore and use underwater resources. Obviously, these programs have been found to be inadequate. In the underwater domain, as India is looking to India has And as some that is online. The concept was the preserve of a few developed countries during the Cold War, and the theater of the UW activities now is shifting to the tropical littoral waters in the Indo-Pacific. Now, what levels of is required would depend upon the objective. For fish farming, maybe 600 meters for detection of submarines, or several thousand meters for seabed mining. The acoustic capacity building, a basic requirement for UDA, can also be for four purposes, which was extensively number two, national security, naval strength and coastal guard capabilities. Ironically or interestingly, space science is being looked upon as a useful means for underwater research. I believe that in the national policy making, a holistic approach incorporating the above four elements would have to be taken into account. You cannot really have very compartmentalized approach in this regard. Well, as we all know, ocean is the new economic frontier. Apart from providing enormous resources of food, energy, minerals, including development of electronics, which is a new requirement, which is something which is not much talked about, but such like nickel, silver, gold, lithium, which are available in the seabed, are of immense importance for the development of electronics. And the ocean is also the last frontier to stabilize climate by absorbing heat and carbon. And therefore, this frontier must not be breached. Now, this brings us to an important lesson. No one nation can harness the potential of the ocean, and hence regional cooperation is qua non for any sustained progress of the blue economy or the ocean economy. Already several countries have adopted blue economy model and for the Indian Ocean, India's Mosam, MAUSAM project, Sagarmala projects, as well as the Sagar doctrine itself. I think these are all, action plans in this context. Indo-Pacific is absolutely essential. It is about the Pacific, to be inclusive. These are all very different that has been outlined. India can contribute by initiate promoting regionally relevant models, and this could technology as of India in the Indian Ocean. The agile cooperation activities, marine and placer minerals exploration, and marine manufacturing, including marine engineering, shipbuilding, ship repairing, or Industry 4.0 range of disruptive technologies. In the heads in the Indian Ocean, India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar can work on hydrogen now that the maritime boundaries between India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar have been settled following the tribunal verdicts, and India accepted the verdict vis-à-vis Bangladesh, although it was not much in our favor. In fact, there is a great deal of potential for sedimentary deposits to be harnessed in the Bay of Bengal. And some years ago, in a book I had written about this, saying that Bay of Bengal region is India's new energy frontier. I think time has come to really explore this further. The island states of Indian Ocean like Mauritius, Seychelles, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Reunion Island, or Madagascar, all these countries are looking to India for support and help with respect to exploration of EEZs. In fact, I was told that in the tribunal which is under discussion between Mauritius and UK, they are likely to receive the award, which will be very much in favor of Mauritius, and that could result in a huge Chagos archipelago EZ being rewarded to Mauritius. Now, for Mauritius to explore this and extract resources from this enhanced EZ, they would require support from countries outside, and I think India could be one of the key partners in a project like this. With Indonesia, I think the scope for our enhanced cooperation is limitless, because since the first term of President Widodo, he has talked about the maritime fulcrum as the key element of his foreign policy, or in fact a national policy. And this is in one area in which India and Indonesia can really work together. Already, I think in the development of the Sabang port in Sumatra, India is working with Indonesia, but I think such projects need to be identified, and our support has to be extended to countries in the Indian Ocean. There are high expectations from India, from the Indian Ocean countries, and I think if we do not fulfill them, I think our Act East policy will not really get the kind of leverage or the strength that we expect it to. Marine biotechnology has suddenly emerged as a very important area for cooperation in the time of now pandemics, because the ocean can be a useful source for drug molecules, nutraceuticals, and functional foods. This is something we had not thought of in the past on a bigger scale, but this is something which can be easily now taken up, and this will be again a part of the UDA. Finally, maritime diplomacy would need to play a critical role to maintain a rule-based order at sea, which is one of the main contention nowadays, be it in the East Sea or in South China Sea or in the Indian Ocean, which will ensure freedom of navigation as well as assure equal access and markets. Maritime security and blue economy are interdependent, and they should remain so. If they don't, then I think blue economy or the UDA cannot work. Only then underwater domain can receive the attention it deserves and necessary policy focus and investments, both from government as well as from private sector. Commander Das talked about the need for user academic exchanges, the cooperation required between the two very important elements, as also with industry. And I would like to commend his institute for doing this yeoman work in this regard. I would like to mention the institute with which I am also associated, namely the Society for Indian Ocean Studies, which is one of the long-standing institutes based in Delhi, which has been engaged in the work relating to the Indian Ocean Societies, also is looking for similar cooperation with users and industry. And I think in this national endeavor, all of us need to pool our resources and our efforts together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Definitely, sir, we'll take this conversation forward, and we definitely would like to work with as many organizations as we can and take the UDA forward. Thank you very much, sir. It was, although we had a little bit of connectivity issues, sir is speaking from Singapore, and we will try and in the recording we will try and correct the audio link problem that we had. So if you could miss out on some of the things that sir has said, we will try and work out with sir to make those corrections subsequently. Thank you very much, sir. Now I would request Dr. Vijay Kelkar, sir, to give his comments. I must put on record, sir has been instrumental in making Pune one of the strategic places in the country. There are multiple now initiatives being supported by sir to bring the think tank culture, or more specifically strategic thinking culture, to Pune, and so we look forward to your guidance, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
I'm audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yeah. First, let me thank Dr. Das for having me here. I really feel like a black sheep in this distinguished crowd of scholars and also knowledgeable people. My introduction to your field is not very long, and it's very sort of instrumental. Yeah, I was educated a little bit by two very outstanding naval persons. One was Governor Secretary Petroleum. One was Admiral Bhagwat, he was CNC. And I was concerned about the safety of our offshore assets, and we had interaction. And also, the other remarkable Admiral Kripal Singh, I don't know many of you remember him. He started a deep divers organization, started a company and training institute actually, and I think we collaborate a little bit on that. So these two people really taught me a little bit, and my interest was kindled. But I want to make only one point. I think I want to first congratulate Dr. Das for a really brilliant presentation. I learned a lot. Only one, at last, I missed it in his underwater domain awareness, and which is very useful for India's energy security, is the deep water pipeline capabilities, pipelines. If India wants to maintain its energy security, we have to import gas. The safest way is by underwater, deep water, because that's not reachable by anybody, and we are quite safe. And we tried to do something when I was Minister of Petroleum. We set up a small group with the help of EIL, Indian India Limited, and under chairmanship of then the chairman of Atomic Energy Commission, You know, Commander, the technology which turned out to be the most critical was welding in deep water. So that's what we didn't have. Otherwise, we could do a lot of things and we just couldn't do it. So there are a lot of small and critical technologies are involved in deep water. So this is one area I would really invite you to add because they're doable and it is quite important in my view. I think look, it will ensure because enough gas available for India's needs for the next 200 years around us. And if you can get natural gas, it's clean. It allows you to make a transition, make all your commitments to Paris Accord or Paris Convention, and still maintain our dynamic growth. So this is one issue. And second issue, corollary is that which is a little longer term and maybe sort of futuristic, the whole issue of gas hydrates. The exploration and exploitation of gas hydrates. Gas hydrates, as you know, are the molecules of the methane molecules trapped in the deep waters and they become crystals. And India has, we are fortunate to have the third world largest reserves of gas hydrates. So again, I mean, that will enough for next 1,000 years of India's energy requirement. So what I'm saying, we have really lot of possibilities of ensuring countries' energy security plus growth and plus meeting our environmental standards and environmental commitments. Provided what we learned about what the Commander Das is trying to teach us about this very important under deep water capabilities, what you call domain awareness. And I would suggest that you will get a lot of support, in my view, from oil and gas industry because they ought to be interested. They were interested then. I'm sure they're interested now. So maybe you should involve them in this, and they have some capabilities, but we have to develop further. But it's very important to get mastery of some key technologies for ensuring India's energy security for really centuries to come, not just tomorrow, but this is a long term energy security. So I'll stop at that. I learned a lot. I'm listening very carefully. I really liked what both Admiral Sinha and Ambassador Sudhir Devre said, and I completely endorse in what they have said. But I only thing I'll add is 2 points for Commander's consideration. Once again, thanks a lot for inviting me and associating me with this very wonderful effort by the Commander. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words, and we'll continue to get your guidance and support in taking this forward. Thank you very much, sir. I would now invite a couple of questions or comments from the audience. Any questions you would like to put out? I think we have very senior people, so they may like to give some comments on what was discussed, or maybe something which should have been discussed. Admiral Murli, sir, you may like to say something.
Yeah, actually, so I mean, a lot of things have been said. I would just add one point. You know, we talked of underwater technology using for now, especially when it comes to fisheries. Unfortunately, in our country, sorry, fishermen are very sensitive. Now, we had some years back, we had a Meena Kumari commission report that was prepared, essentially to preserve, how to better our fisheries products, how to better our fisheries. It meant something like, you got to keep certain areas, no fishing zone, certain areas where you could wait for it to then before you harvest fish, etc. Unfortunately, it got, it's a very technical and sound report. It got politicized. People who are, I won't take names, some of them big names who are really not, I would say, fully aware of things, but claim themselves to be the champions of environmentalism and things like that, came and started speaking, and the whole thing was put to shelf. Because the ordinary fisherman has to be taken along. So whatever we plan to do in underwater domain awareness, putting up systems, etc., it's unless you educate and take that community along with you, you're going to face problems because they're going to say, because of this, our fisheries catch dropped. We didn't get fish today. That's just one point which I thought since it didn't find mention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Arun Sehgal, sir, would you like to say something, sir? or anybody. Rajan sir, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Arnav. Although you have mentioned in your wide-ranging survey today about pollution and marine environment, but I'd like the participants to there's a huge amount of plastic pollution still going on enormously in the oceans, and that is going to impact on underwater domain awareness and all the projects that we may want to do. We have to find a solution to the problem of plastics in the ocean. It is being said by scientists that a time will come in about 20 years' time when there will be more plastics than fish in the ocean. So, which is quite a serious matter, and I think we have to do much more than what we are doing at the moment. The stakeholders of the oceans, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the shipping, I think we could do much more to not only raise awareness, but to come up with schemes, to implement the schemes where the plastic pollution can be reduced. The plastic manufacturers, for example, they have to be made responsible for the recycling. It is being done in other countries. It's being done in US for many years. I don't know why we have not taken it up. So in India, that plastic manufacturing should be done only by those who are then become responsible for recycling of that plastic. Recycling of the plastic is going very slowly. Only about 20% of the plastic which is being produced is being recycled. And I think this is an aspect which we should be paying more attention to. And I said that the stakeholders are the ones of the oceans who would do this. And there could be, social media could be brought in. One hardly hears anything in social media about this issue, which is a very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. If there are no more questions, I'll request Ambassador Yogendra Kumar sir to sum up the discussion, and also he has worked a lot on the maritime sector, and together we've worked on a policy paper. So I would request Yogendra Kumar sir to speak on this.
Thank you. First of all, happy Makar Sankranti, Pongal, Bihu. The festival spirit is what we really need to lift our spirits in these difficult times. Air Marshal Gokhale, Director MRC, Ambassador Devre, Dr. Kelkar, Vice Admiral Sinha, and distinguished attendees. I'm most grateful for seminal contribution to a topic of national importance from such a galaxy of former key decision makers and now shapers of our national discourse. We've all been enlightened by the discussion today. Many thanks to our esteemed speakers. Indeed, after such luminaries have spoken on this theme, there would very little to add from my end about the way ahead. So I would generously help myself with their thoughts as we, the webinar participants, look to the future. Like so many of the Cold War military technologies, their dual uses are being constantly thought of nowadays. The nature of strategic challenges has changed. So has the nature of governance. The stewardship of the increasingly scarce resources is becoming more complex and contested. This touches upon geopolitics as well as the institutional cohesiveness and resilience. What has not changed is the imperative of situational awareness. It is the essential foundation for exercise of power and a relationship between national agencies and between countries. The maritime domain has become for India the new holy grail. It's a rich resource of wealth, power, and influence. Even more importantly, it is a new frontier for the unleashing of our creative energies for technology and economic prosperity. There's a pressing need for it because we might lose out on the first mover opportunity. Maritime domain awareness has a critical complement in the underwater domain awareness. Our national goals of Atmanirbharta, economic and technological progress with flexibility in value chains, an entrepreneurial and startup culture, and a post-COVID green and blue future are not possible without a commanding UDA. This hitherto little explored angle of vision, now possible due to newer technological capabilities, goes beyond the purely security one. This enhanced national capability will not only preempt security threats, but also lead to better stewardship of our marine resources and the sustainable exploitation, monitoring climate change effects and environmental deterioration, and the larger aspects of coastal and marine governance. This unique capability for digital ocean and the data-driven technology and applications is opening up vast opportunities for strategic, scientific, and entrepreneurial communities to work with renewed synergy for a larger national purpose. In 10 years' time, the global blue economy is likely to be $3 trillion. NATO is already positioning itself to make digital ocean as part of its grand strategy, as also are the other big powers. It is sought to be achieved by leveraging artificial intelligence, communication and robotics, a system of underwater drones powered by sun, wind, and waves, advanced sensors, cameras, and acoustics for a real-time UDA. Talking of an accelerator corridor through an ecosystem of blue tech companies of UDA startups is already being discussed at the level of NATO, and at the level of NATO in particular. It is anchored in acoustic capacity. It's about big data generation, analytics, and regulatory frameworks. It requires enhanced capabilities for waters of Indian concern, for monitoring the marine biosphere, like mangroves, seagrass, protected zones, and now, of course, we have the problem of the black hole in the Bay of Bengal, which is actually a dead zone of about 6,000 square kilometers, and it tends to continue due to global warming, changing river runoff and circulation patterns, and has having a devastating impact on marine ecology. It could even become a tipping point as far as the entire climate balance is concerned, because of oxygen depletion and because of the fact that it's going to affect something like 400 million people who live on the Bay of Bengal littoral. So it's about our preparedness for global discourse. It's also about the preparedness for global discourse and the terminology and the standard which actually are being talked in the about the digital ocean. So it is about our own national policy cohesion, institutional handshakes among multiple stakeholders, and the requisite capacity upgrades, the smoothly comporting regulatory frameworks which become necessary for developing a directional synergy in this domain. This will provide a huge impetus to our diplomatic engagement with the IOR littorals as well as the island countries in terms of sharing of capacities and building joint capabilities. Illustratively, as we help in providing hydrographic maps to our neighbors for better management of their maritime interests, from purely holistic point of view, we could actually extend this to the UDA as well. These enhanced capabilities of the littorals and the island countries would help them face the same challenges and exploit the same opportunities as India. However, given that many of these countries are largely one major commodity or service economies, making them particularly vulnerable to growing geo-economic and geopolitical risks, such cooperation will exponentially help in the diversification of the economies and greater stability in economic terms, which actually help also against the possibility of countries getting destabilized and therefore completely undermining what we might call the building blocks of a maritime order in the Indian Ocean region. This impetus has strategic ramifications in our maritime outlook and diplomacy. Maritime diplomacy is now the centerpiece of external outreach and has been the beating heart of Prime Minister Sagar articulation, his Indo-Pacific vision, and most recently, the Oceans Initiative as far as the Indo-Pacific region is concerned. It is also an indispensable feature of our bilateral diplomacy. Now we need to complement it with its presently missing dimension, that is the UDA. We made a presentation we made a presentation to Niti Aayog for a national UDA framework, which is now being discussed there. The presentation attended by the Vice Chairman, the CEO, and several key advisors who actually follow different dimensions of this particular issue. The Indian diplomatic engagement, the IOR littoral and IOR-related multilateral governance mechanism has a significant maritime dimension where India brings in its expertise in both soft power and hard power capabilities to shape the maritime environment. Be it Sagar, BIMSTEC, or the Prime Minister's Indo-Pacific Initiative, they all have a significant component of it. Adding the UDA dimension to this diplomacy is critical from a strategic point of view for the same reason that it is for our national, in our national outlook. Apart from the strategic community, UDA offers scope for productive, profitable cooperation in other spheres, not least being startup entrepreneurs. For example, the External Affairs Minister recently mentioned the following aspects of maritime diplomacy: is maritime security, maritime ecology, maritime resources, capacity building, and resource sharing for disaster risk reduction and management, science, technology, and academic cooperation, and trade, connectivity, and maritime transport. These aspects are open for India's lead, as also by other countries sharing this common vision. Prime Minister Initiative for Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure is another wide area for cooperation where UDA will be an important aspect. Now, here, of course, we do talk about the Indian Ocean region, which has been described by the UNEP as the world's hazard belt because of cyclones, droughts, floods, and tidal surges. The 50% of natural disasters in the Indian Ocean region are climatogenic or seismogenic. Now, what actually I would further just add here is that because of the fact that our webinar attendees represent a diverse group of professionals, academicians, scientists, and business people, as an immediate way ahead, groups can be constituted to follow up on the various concrete suggestions, either to further flesh them out or to explore business opportunities relating to Indian Ocean region, including blue tech startups. And as I mentioned earlier, that it requires whole of the nation approach, a holistic approach, and where we talk in terms of whether it is monitoring capabilities, regulatory frameworks, environment, and security and terrorism. I mean, it's just a matter of time before the terrorists get hold of these underwater drones. And already we find that maritime side of terrorism actually is growing, and we find some of these things actually happening in Mozambique and elsewhere. So I think I would simply say that we already have some ideas which have already been put together here in the discussion session, in the question and answer session, and also our distinguished speakers, what they have said. And I think it gives us a good food for thought to develop these ideas which actually were made here, to take them forward as a follow-up on this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very comprehensive closing remarks. I would now request Praful Talera, sir, to propose a vote of thanks. I must admit, MRC, wherever it is today, there's a lot of effort from Praful ji to have spent time with me and guiding me all along, connecting me to various people. I was new to Pune, and Praful ji has been instrumental in getting me connected to the ecosystem in Pune. Thank you so much, Praful ji.
Thank you, Commander. Thus, good afternoon. On the whilst it's been very apt occasion that we had this webinar, because whilst we've been discussing and deliberating, the Sea Vigil 2021 has been kicked off by the Indian Navy with all the other stakeholders, the Coast Guard, the Customs Department, and so many others to assess. This has been the second exercise of its form since the first exercise was conducted in 2019, and it'll end today. It was kicked off yesterday, so it's very apt that we've had this great deliberation today. I would like to thank Admiral Shekhar Sinha, sir, and Air Marshal Bhushan Gokhale, who's been always very, very kind and very encouraging. Ambassador Sudhir Devre, my mentor, and Dr. Vijay Kelkar, for having spared their valuable time to come and share their views and perspectives about what they feel about the importance of the underwater domain. This is a very nascent, I mean, I've been involved for the last 4 years, since 2017, and it's been a great education for me myself. And it's a very nascent field, very sunrise sector for so many dimensions of the economy as well as the environment, security, and science and technology. So I would urge all of you here, the audience as well as our very eminent panel, to become advocates and proponents for propagating and creating more awareness about the UTA concept, which has been initiated by Commander Das. This is a very new deep blue frontier, yeah, which very few people are aware of. Whenever we have reached out to people, people have said, "Oh, sorry, we didn't know anything about something." In fact, myself, I do admit that I was totally introduced to this subject by Commander Das. And so, on Dr. Harshavardhan recently launched the Digital Ocean. So, it is very heartening that the Government of India has set the context for this thing, and we need to make it a digital smart ocean, because the only medium which can be used for communication is sound. So, and as we all know, 70% of the world is the waters. And a little known fact is that 80% of the world's population lives within 200 nautical miles of the sea. And despite global warming and the rise of the oceans, this distance is becoming less. So it's so imperative for us to take note of these of this blue world, and I come from the logistics side, so for me this is a very important dimension, because 90% of global trade goes by sea, and as the Indian Ocean becomes the fulcrum of global power, and it's going to be the theater of whatever is going to be decided in the 21st century. So for India, with the new Indo-Pacific construct and our eminent position on the Indian Ocean, it's so important that we all take cognizance of it. And I'm so glad and I'm so happy that India, as the government and so many of the eminent luminaries and dignitaries here are going to have promised us to take this ahead. Thank you so much, everyone. On behalf of the CAS and the Maritime Research Centre, I thank you all and wish you a very happy Bihu, Pongal, Sankranti, and a great new year ahead. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prafulji. I think now we have come to the end of the event. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to connecting with all of you and taking this forward in whatever way possible, and request you to kindly have a look at our website also, and your email IDs are with us. We will be sharing the video recording of the event, which you can also go through in your leisure, and if there are any audio or video disruptions, we will take care of that before it is uploaded. It may take a day or two, and also we will be working on a small report on the takeaways of this event. We had such senior people, and we will be definitely seeking their guidance and preparing a small report, and that also will be put up on the website, as well as it will be shared with you by email. Thank you all so much for being part of this. Special thanks to the panel members, Dr. Vijay Gokhale sir, Ambassador Sudhir Devre sir, Ambassador Yogendra Kumar sir, Admiral Shekhar Sinha sir, Bhushan sir, always been there and making sure that things happen. And thank you very much, sir. Not just as CAS, but sir has been extremely kind and guiding me all the way. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you all. We have had very senior people attending. I'm sorry I'm not able to call out everybody, but I seek your continued guidance and support in taking this forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you on behalf of CAS also. Thank you. Signing off.